exciting because the first thing we've got is rain. Take it away, guy.
I'll just do some quick introductions for the people who haven't seen us before. So, excluding yesterday, I'm the project manager of this rates review process. We've got Kelly Clouston, who is our rates guru on a day-to-day basis. She's the one that put the rates out and does all the day-to-day stuff. And Donna's just walking through the door. Donna, as you know, yesterday she's our financial accountant, and she's been doing a lot of the modelling. And Donna, you can sit up here. So this is the project team, and we have Stephen Halliwell here, who is our external advisor. Stephen's been doing a lot of work for us, and he's got a long career in local government and consulting with local government. And we're Saskia. Saskia is the project sponsor, so it's really a finance team effort. And I won't say anything else because Stephen's got a hard close at 11 to get back to Queenstown for his flight back out home. So, and they were mucking around with helicopters yesterday, surveying
the road. So
so
play stuff.
We're the team. Stephen will lead most of this discussion kind of from an independent perspective. And what we're hoping for today is some direction in the way you want to go with this. Hopefully you get a lot of good interaction because there are some meaty discussion points that will need resolving, or at least pointing us in the direction you want to go. So I will hand over to Stephen. And
Morning. It's great to be here again. Done quite a lot of work here to get to where we've got. So you've got a paper sent out to you on Monday, I think.
Yeah, Monday. Yeah.
With some information on it. Parts of this during the course of this conversation. And then there's a 30-page presentation part of it. Picked up a list of things that we've talked about at 2 previous workshops. And the purpose of today is to consider how we're going to allocate the rates in the future and what systems we're going to use. Are we going to use capital value or land value as the primary conversation today? From that, we will go into a deeper dive. The feedback we get from you on a smaller sample of things that we have.
Show the next slide.
Yep.
We have the next slide, Wayne.
Slides. You see the agenda. I'm not going through that. Next slide. It just got to that. So we come back together next on April the 9th. And as I said, we're going to go deeper. We're going to have the new valuation numbers. I understand you had a look at that yesterday. Those have got to be put into the system. We've got to then redo our modelling and go deeper into modelling. And joy of joy, we've got Easter in the middle of that time frame. So we'll be straight into that. After that next meeting, we'll be going and start preparing for engagement. So pretty quick process that we're working on, and been done before, so we can do that. Next page. I just going to work through some parts of this quite quickly, and other parts get some discussion going. This is straight out of the Local Government Act, and it's the key thing there is the local authority determines what is appropriate, and that's key legislation for the purpose of what we're doing, it's up to the local authority to determine what is appropriate. As I've said in previous workshops, every council does this differently. Even though we're using the same tool and we're pretty much in the same business, different communities have different needs for how they fund the business. Next slide. Recap of the previous work. I don't think I need to go through that today again. It's just a reminder there. That takes us to the first matter of substance. That's the direction and priorities that you have been working on. Just thinking about it in the context of rates itself. So in the work paper that was sent out, I picked up your priorities of funding, protection, traction, and regional leadership. And got some questions on the page as to where what we do with rates sits with your priorities. Notice with funding, they've used the words secure, fair, flexible, and future-proofed. And I'm assuming that purpose of rates, those are the sorts of things that you want, right? That it's secure, fair, flexible, and future-proof. There's been a number of reviews of the rating system in New Zealand by independent bodies, and primarily the system itself is the easiest ones and fairest in the world. Others, it's not overly complex. The money is easy to keep. It's what you want from a good taxes. Looked at protection and thought that talk about managing growth. Started that conversation. Rates could be used to manage growth in some ways. You want to stay away from, you don't want to connect rates and DCs. They need to be separate. DCs is full of complexity and highly regulated. Rating is quite a lot of flexibility in what we can do with rates. Stay out of that.
What's DC?
Right.
DC.
DC, element contributions. Yeah. Under attractions, talk about whether it would be too expensive to be able to afford. Yes. And one of the things I note is that swimming pools, for example, across the country, once upon a time there were two swimming pools in New Zealand that made a profit, but after a mudslide in Tauranga, there's now only one that makes a profit. Straightforward forward, it amounts no longer, and the
No.
Hamner.
Oh, can I say him?
Hamner's apparently profitable, but across the rest of the country, swimming pools are supported by rates, for example.
$4 a rand, Philip, be right back.
My understanding is you're working through this process of values and priorities and still working on it. That introduction, does anyone want to have a view on where your priorities sit with the rates review?
A lot of it is around that, the fairness and the equity of how the rates are spread alongside the looking for alternate revenue streams.
Yeah.
But a big part of it is smoothing out those extreme ups and downs we've had over the last few years.
The ups and downs.
Whereby rural sector goes up by 30% one year and then down by 15 the next and then up by
So
20.
valuations.
And I guess the one for me, and we've talked about it already, is it a tool to help manage that growth? Whether that is an issue, growth is an issue, it's a good thing or a bad thing. But if we run into infrastructure deficits, it's got to be funded and the growth's got to help do that. And my belief is if we keep the assets, lots of pools that we have, because it is what we are, Central Otago is, and therefore we've got to fund a more equitable way to fund inefficiencies in our business, you might argue. Like Ranfurly, it's $44 a person to be at the pool, but everyone would pay $44 to make sure that every kid had a right to learn how to swim in our pools in Ranfurly. So what's the mechanism where we can fund that deficit? And considering the government have said we've got a cap on us now, we've got to, you know, we're playing in a really tight headspace.
Yeah. Hey. Next page, please. This lots of statements that have been made. The first one is in the revenue and financing policy. And it probably a case of it not being reviewed at the time you made changes last time with the rates. So the council has a focus on area of benefit and user pays as a preference, and using rates as a pseudo process for user pays. And then there's the in the LTP, the council wants things to be simplified and more district focused. So at the moment, assuming B is your preference, that hasn't changed, and that we need to change the policy, take away this reference of area of benefit and user pays and rates. And rates is a pseudo system.
There's probably a sweet spot in the middle where there is an enthusiasm for some things being user pays and not that everything is collected from rates, but we recognise that we have moved away from that area of benefit with the district focus, district-wide rating.
Yeah. That's nice and simple.
Here is Mark.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the ratepayer is a user, aren't they?
The ratepayers, there's still an element of user pays. We're not going to have, you know, free swimming pools, but there is an effort. I think there is an effort to simplify some of the things that we are doing with this review.
Yeah. Yeah.
And try and smooth out some of those anomalies around who's paying what part of the pie and make it a more equitable system.
I think that will change definitely when Three Waters goes as well, because that whole concept of you're connected, you use it, you pay for it, that will be gone. And that will reinforce the B, which is we're spreading the load across. And I think when you do the B, spreading that load, you end up with not all ratepayers use the services that they're rated for, and that's comes back to rates being a tax. You know, it's a similar sort of scenario. Not everybody uses goes to the doctor as regularly as other people. So, you know, taxes collected for that purpose are not necessarily evenly distributed, I guess, in the use. So I think we need to not worry so much about ratepayers being the users, because not all ratepayers are users and not all users are ratepayers. So I think that the B is the thing that, what you're trying to achieve.
No. Good. Right, next slide, uniform annual general charge. So this is the fixed rate. Big fixed rate. It goes to every, so we've got the general rate, which could be a land value and capital value. Then we've got the other general rate. Legislation is awkward in this respect, which is the uniform annual general charge, which is a fixed rate that every single ratepayer pays, same as they do with the general rate. And traditionally, this council has been up around the 30%, which is the limit. It's in the legislation. And look at in the modelling, look at the impact of some of those things. You have the option of collecting the UAGC per rating unit, per separately used inhabited part of a rating unit. Government, in their wisdom, some decade ago, maybe now, decided to introduce this term and had no definition of it. And so when they realised it was a problem, they changed the legislation to say that every council was to create its own standing on what separately used inhabited part is.
What is it?
Yeah.
Like a granny flat.
Yeah, or it's got a commercial premises with a shop underneath and a residence up on top. That would be two separately used or inhabited parts, because they are. So what effectively you would do is, for each one of those types of things, you could levy the UAGC for each one of them.
What a bare piece of land.
One.
Just a rating, yes.
So where you've got a farm with 5 dairy units on it, dairy houses on it, is that the same, or is that one unit?
It's, and when Waitaki did it, was each one was a separate UAGC in their definition. And it was deliberately part of the strategy of, and this is 20 years ago. It was just they intended to do that because the people living in those houses were using libraries and things like that.
And how did they account for the fact that all of the infrastructure was actually not council services, other than libraries and things?
It's only the UAG, it's only the.
No, that
uniform
under that.
charge.
No, the SWIP or whatever you call it.
So
Yeah, so if that's how you said that's where they went.
it's where they chose to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because every council does a different set of rules, with frustration from developers in particular, but yeah, you end up with slight differences, sometimes significant differences.
Go back to the dairy and the flat on top. It would have a higher normal rateable value because of that anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So you pick it up in a normal rating unit.
Well,
it's worth
hang on,
It's land value.
but let's think
Capital
about
value would.
Yeah.
the UAGC.
UAGC is fixed anyway, but
is so that you have the bucket general rate. Right? We can collect a uniform charge part of that. So effectively what you're doing is saying that 70% of the general rate, and I'm using broad terms here, 70% of, if that's all you had, 70% of the general rate is collected from variable charges, which is picked up in the valuation. 30% is picked up through the uniform annual general charge, and the methods of allocating that. So if you had a rating unit, you might charge $150 per rating unit for uniform annual general charge. If you use SUIPs, because you are then allocating that 30% over more, it would be potentially a lower fixed charge to the ratepayer who pays, who utilises that sewer. So that's how that's how fixed charges work in relation to rating units or sewers.
We're not using syrup now.
I'm not using it now, no. And for the reasons there, I suspect it's
Complex.
it's complicated because you actually have to sit down
Yeah, work it out.
and think about when you define what a SUIP is.
Yeah.
Think about every possible combination that you could have, because if someone comes along and says, well, my situation doesn't fit your definition, then you're losing
So
out.
UAG set a regulation at 30% and no more at any time for government.
The only time we're going to be able to go over 30% is when Three Waters leaves, and you have 3 years, I think, to bring it back into line with 30%.
So if we took it to 35% now, we've got 3 years grace, 40%.
Well, when Three Waters goes, we will be at 42%.
And that's acceptable
It's acceptable under the legislation,
until
but you have to
3
bring
years.
yourself back.
It's a sliding scale.
Yeah.
So therefore, and if that is the case, and we get a freedom to do that, and we have growth, like I guess the growth, could we not have our capital value, for example, and picks up the growth in the future, allows that to come back? Like, will it give us time to catch the growth?
Well, I think let's talk about that bit at
That end.
the chart stuff. This is more about a decision. Do you want to remain on a per rating unit, which is very easy to administer? It's just, we've got 15,000 rating units. We collect X amount of dollars per rating unit. Or do you want to, you're not collecting any more fixed charge overall. Let's just put that in there. You're just getting more rating units.
So in the case of the person who's come a new development, take Neil Gillespie, build a granny flat on the edge of their house. If we stick with that, they actually do not get a subsidy, but it's in their best intention to,
What you would
they get a lift in their capital value. And
what
they're
you would
only
do in
paying
that particular situation, I would suggest, and as I think we want to move on, it's really, but you would put an exemption potentially in for granny flats that are used by family members, except, which you can already see the complexity that is going to have to go in there. And then how do we enforce that? Oh, your mother lived there, but when your mother's not there, it's Airbnb. How does that play out? So those are the types of
the capital value would pick that up.
Capital value will pick it up. My recommendation, and I'm sure Stephen would recommend the same, is we stick with rating unit because it is easy to administer. For the sake of reducing a fixed charge on one person and effectively.
Well, you have an old Scotsman in Bannockburn will turn around and say, but I'm not using that building, so I want a discount on that I do. And then, said 25 days of staff work.
So, yeah.
Someone in Roxburgh.
Yeah.
That's
Disputes and the administration of it. And the two is because it is complex. And it creates a lot of admin.
So is it kind of a stop point to say, think?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll stick with that.
Yeah.
Don't want complexity, especially it's just staff workload and doesn't achieve what we want. Any other bigger fish we can chase?
Is there anybody who's doing it quite well, recognising that one of the things that will potentially come for Cromwell is what's happened and I'm not sure what the extent of it is now, but for the likes of Queenstown, where they are building house after house that has home and income with a separate unit that is rented out on the same property. How much of that do you think we have within our district currently?
The granny flats are going to be like that. They could have
Yeah.
business in there. They could have granny in there. They could have a tenant in there. They could have an Airbnb business running. Yeah.
Sometimes you can catch some of that through the category codes that QV apply. If they are aware that there is income in business, then we could identify it that way. But as a rule, I don't think it's big here at the moment.
Because we're looking to create a fairer system.
Yeah, so does capital value in itself, as the property value goes up, or
That would capture that.
does that capture that?
Well, it would in theory in time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? So you're going to capture some of that.
Yeah.
If your general rate was capital value,
Yes.
if it's land value, you won't capture it.
Picked up by QV that like yesterday they were saying it's a lot of it's fairly automated, that they look at what's there and they don't necessarily know. Like if there's property that have got granny flats that go in that didn't get a perm and do it the right way, going to be plenty of them coming out, and those, like we saw it yesterday, the valuations were from September. The rule changed in January, so these 3 years that's going to be huge, but we're not going to get an updated CV for 3 years, obviously. We're 3 years out of actual users, and
It's always going to be the way. Always going to be 3 years out.
So every year the rating, they,
So whenever a building consent is go like if extensions are put on, QV has access to that data and then they can adjust the values accordingly, and that will take place from 1st of July next rating year. It's just the general revaluation that happens at 3 rating.
but does that capture, like with the granny flats, you only have to get a perm, you don't have to get a building
So
consent?
we are looking at, we've got the new system coming in place called Objective
Yeah.
Build. So that should help capture all those PIMs for QV to, if we get a QV.
So they will be on-
They should be able to.
Sorry,
get
that's where I'm
And the rate at which valuations are going up, possibly in Central Target, will capture that quite quickly anyway. Because you've got a growing value market. So it'll get caught up in time. But that's right, you don't need a permit to do that, so you don't know that they're being built.
So
But they do need a perm.
You will
councils
need
will know that they're both being built. You
Well,
gotta
not
still,
necessarily, there's a hell of a lot that have gone up already that have got nothing and they're winging it.
We can't fix that. though.
No, I know, but like,
But it will
Because you
get
don't
taken up
need a consent.
revaluation.
there's no.
value is only going to pick up information that is provided to them. They're not going out chasing them.
But the PIM's enough to,
The PIM should do it.
like, you don't need to get to BC, PIM is enough.
Should do.
Look at that.
And one of the things I think the Value General told me is that they're changing the rules to make sure that lawyers do pass. There's going to be a fine if they don't pass information through to us on what's happening with the
So
property.
at the moment,
You need
providing a change of ownership document is, it's legislated that they have to do it within a certain period of time, but there's no teeth behind what happens if they don't. So Value General's looking at that sort of notification and say, you will do it in this time frame, and if you don't do it in this time frame, you will be fined. So they're looking at tightening up, because the valuers need that information to do their general revalues as well, to keep it. So they're aware of things that need tightening up.
So as an idea, how much would a granny flat add value to a house in Cromwell? 1 bedroom and a toilet and shower, like is it
What
a
beds cost you
quarter of a
about?
million?
Cheapest you can put on 100.
And it would add a couple of hundred value
So
to your
that's
property.
Yeah.
I think as a help service, the mortgage is probably the.
Yeah, like it really that way. If you stuck that way there and they did do that, it gives the ratepayer a subsidy for 3 or 4 years. They can earn income to offset their actual cost of their building, it probably doesn't do it. You gotta pick it up in the next valuation.
Well, the thing is, if we don't know,
Oh,
QV don't know,
yeah, I'll let me know.
SUIPs aren't going to help because we don't know. So we're still going to be charging one unless someone actually goes and cites what's
Yeah.
happened. So there is potential that it never gets picked up unless someone goes and looks at it. Because if someone's done it on the sly, they're winging it, they build it, off they go. If we don't know about it, we can't tell anybody. If QB don't know about it, they can't value it. We can't do a SUIP on it if we were going to go down that track. We're not going to pick up the extra capital value because nobody knows about it. So I think that's a different problem than what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, my sister has just been looking for houses, and several of the houses she looked at, there's an awful lot of stuff that wasn't in council's records. It should have been in there. And those are old buildings. But, yeah, so it's a different issue.
And they said that yesterday. They said, we don't know what's on the inside. It would still look the same on the outside, but the inside could be.
And the other thing with rates, you get the rate and the year. And it's what theoretically is happening in that property on that day. So if you really want to get out of you gap where you're not doing anything.
So just to clarify, rating unit is the way you want to go. Is that what we're getting out of?
Is that the professional recommendation?
Yes.
That's, I'm,
Just simpler.
Righto.
Right, so we'll move on to the next slide.
not that you're making decisions today.
No,
It's direction.
That's the direction you want us to
To
go.
us for a,
Yes.
So just for information, we're dealing with moving data. Today's data that we're looking at is based on the database at 6th February. And our next one will have the revaluation information that we're starting to get processed. And then we go to public, the last version for the rates resolution and the annual plan, where we go next. And then ultimately, what's not on that slide is we'll end up with a new policy going through the LTP process next year. So it's not until June of next year that this comes to fruition and actually people start paying the rate, whatever that's going to look like. The new system. Next slide, please. Yeah, you got me to read. So just to be clear, our data excludes Three Waters from the 2000s and excludes the grants and wastewater management. Waste management and waste collection. They have been deemed as out of scope for this. They'll just carry on as usual. System. All good? No issues there. They don't have to come in. No, good. Page, please. Doing this in a hurry. List out industrial and commercial from this slide. So this slide isn't complete. The key point of this is what the status quo is in these modelling. It includes a 9.61.
Yeah, so
Same.
the original.
Yep.
Draft annual plan, you say to see. Dated one, it's just two.
So you'll see that the majority of people on this are sitting in the 0 to 99.
That's the dollar increase that's going to be on their rates.
Yeah. So they've all had an increase for that 9%, which is why they're not sitting on the line below. So that's what we're calling the status quo. Just for your interest, there are 2,602 lifestyle properties, 1,973 residential, 1,200 rural, 313 mining, etc. 1,101 commercial. You'll see those numbers running through slides. Next slide. So all up is 15,139 rating units. Everyone. And this slide is general rate 100% LV. So we've taken away all the other rates. This is if we just went 100% CV, and the next slide is 100%, sorry, 100% land value. The next slide is CV. And what we see here is that by taking away fixed rates, have a group of people that increase in rates, have a group of people getting a decrease in rates, essentially. A lot of detail there, but essentially that's it. Oh, just on these slides, just because we're going to look at a few of these. Down the left-hand side is 500 lots. So it's the dollars of increase above the line. And the black line is our status quo line. And below that, properties going down. Along the bottom is the number of rating units. The sum of all those blue rating units comes to 1,589. And we try to keep the scales on these slides the same. So yeah. See the differences. So we've got a number of these slides. At the end of the day, we're coming to what sort of rating system is LVCV at the end of this. So this is just giving you a picture at the highest level. And we'll change that picture in more detail at a deeper level.
Sorry, a couple of points with this information. This is the old valuation data.
Yep.
So we haven't done anything with
Old valuation.
any of the new stuff. This is what it was. So what it was last week prior to the announcement.
Just a question. So that's assuming the 9% status quo rate rise, yeah?
Yep. So that is,
So what that graph's telling me is on a rating unit basis, more people will receive a decrease and a smaller number of people carry a disproportionate amount of that 9% increase.
yeah. So the other thing I was going to add to this is these two, the extremes. So everything else fits within these parameters. So it's either 100% LV, which
Right. Yeah.
at one end of the spectrum, 100% CV at the other end of the spectrum. We've removed all of the fixed charges, which would move people around the rating, how much they pay in rate. So it's really just to say, if you got rid of everything else and stuck with your fixed, with your capital, or not, sorry, your variable charge
It was 100%.
100% LV at this end, this is what would happen compared to what your status quo is. And when you see the next slide, you will see.
It's not just the general rate.
No, it's every rate
Everything.
levied through the general rate effectively,
You're just making every rate a general rate, is what you're saying.
but it's all levied at variable rates. No, there's no fixed charges in there. So what that then gives you the ability to do is move stuff within and introduce fixed charges and see what that does to the model. So these are the two ends.
Also, just at this stage, the dams are currently still in at their current factor, which is only an increase based on the
Yeah.
average rates.
Average
increase.
increase.
So once we continue through this, hopefully we'll get a bit of guidance on how you guys want to approach that one.
Right, moving to next slide, please. So this is capital value version of it. Big change here is we've introduced improvements. It's a land value plus the improvements value now. Improvements is our buildings. And so that has
With this.
interesting at that stage, the difference between the two lots aren't great.
No. That capital is including buildings, land value and capital, or just capital?
Capital value.
It all includes the land as well.
Improvements, yeah.
Everything.
So what that's actually done is the notes there that Stephen's got, we lose the increase at the top end, 414 rating units drops down to 249. But we also pick up 11 utilities because they have no land value. They have a lot of capital.
So who are those utilities, for example?
They would be our schemes. They would pick up, this doesn't include the hydros though, but
No.
Under
So
normal
you're looking at
circumstances,
power lines,
yeah.
our
transpower lines.
I've got a slide on it.
infrastructure. So,
We'll keep going through, and I think it'll pull itself in as we go through. So we break this down by some sectors. So this is our residential sector. You'll see that the line, long line on blue is the LV, the green is the CV. So that everything just gets a little bit more spread out. Go to capital value. That's the difference between the land value and adding capital value. And another slide coming up that'll show that quite significantly change. It's pretty much going from 100% general rate to where we're going to probably end up. It's all about getting the fixed rates.
You've got 10,000 rateable units up there, so where's the other 5,000?
That's just residential.
Just residential. Which is your biggest
Yeah, chunk.
number of rate players in one category by quite a lot. So we then go to rural one. Next slide, yep. Similar. But because of the impact of those fixed rates, that 30%, it really is moved up to the pay more. We do it again.
And it just looks like it's more spread. Same thing.
Even.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised by that, those decreases under there for the rural. CV.
Depends on the value of the improvements though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
You'd
people.
think that, if you're adding in land value and so
Yeah.
you're going on CV as opposed to LV, I thought the spread would be different.
I think if you, and I've kind of said this before, is the value for rural sits in the land. The increment by adding the buildings to it is not.
It's 10%.
Whereas the value,
I've got it at 20%.
yeah, the value sits in urban, in the capital of the house you put on the place. So
It's only 10%.
when you look at land values, rurals will always be higher. When you bring in the capital value, the proportions start to come, if it's 46% of the total value is rural and 54% is everybody else, in total, you start to move towards that as you implement capital value because their proportion is not as high.
Be a fairer spread between rural and residential.
I've always advocated capital value. I think it is, yeah. Because otherwise, my perspective, land value is pretty much similar across wherever you happen to have your land located. So everybody kind of pays a similar amount just on land value. Then you've got large farming areas or even orchards, etc., with large capital values. Their land proportion is higher than, so they pick up more of the rate. Whereas if you go to capital value, it kind of equalises
It's
it.
also the same in smaller rural communities and residential situation. The land value is
Yep.
on the slides yesterday, some of them were 40% of the CV. You go to Cromwell, it was, I can't remember, but it was a lot less. In other areas, it's a lot less. In bigger towns, it's a lot less.
So that's kind of the reason why that happens.
Slide, same again. And next slide. Just the other.
Other,
What's, sorry,
Does that include solar?
we don't have any.
Kind
at the moment.
Any at the moment.
Yeah,
with
not the current.
with forestry, currently it's under LV, it's obviously not capturing the trees. Is the trees get included if you move to CV?
No.
Oh,
It's a fascinating piece of the history if you go and read the Hansard on late night. Bellamese was involved way back then because there's a lot of conversations was around goes on and what goes out late at night. It's fascinating.
what do you mean, sorry?
There was a lot of lobbying.
Oh, right.
Certain people in Parliament, so that certain sectors got away with that.
So essentially a forestry block CV and LV are the same if you're not valid, if the trees are included in the CV. Maybe a road and the road would be part of land value, wouldn't it?
Fencing.
No, there is an improvement value for the trees there, but not for apple trees and horticulture.
And pine forestry.
About carbon?
Sorry?
What about carbon? People be using trees for carbon, so there'd be a capital value in there. Where you might have a shelter belt or you could have, you know, stuff irrigated.
Not sure on that one.
We do only have approximately 11 properties of forestry. So it's a very small sector in this.
But for an agriculture industry like I'm not saying the younger ones, that sounds weird. But carbon is now being used where you can offset your carbon on that scrub country out here at Earnscleugh. If it gets registered, it can offset its carbon, so it becomes an income. And we trade carbon QP, don't we, on our holding carbon?
Buy it off farmers.
Pardon?
They buy it off the farmers.
Yeah, but we've got trees at council there that we're going to be cutting down, you see. So there's carbon. Our own council has trees and
Pre-89 though.
yeah, so that is a fun. I mean, I guess when we're looking about rating, well, solar, we're setting a rate now. How's it going to affect us in the next 30 years? So how do we understand it, I guess? And then mining, how do we understand mining? Because if it hasn't been mined, how does it have a value? And how do you value a gold mine when you don't know what it returns? Or is it on a yield or is it on a capital value? And if they pay $55,000 a hectare for a hunk of dirt and terrace, does that affect that? That's the whole part of it. Does it affect the rating of the region, and does it affect the rating of the person next door because their capital value will be set on the value of the gold under the ground? They're just because there are 3 or 4 things that you go, well, actually, if you come down from North Island, you buy a Walling pine block in the back of Dancy's Pass, which has happened, you can trade the carbon on a Walling pine block with hill country values of $200 a hectare, but we're not capturing that lift in value for the person who lives there against the Walling pine. It's not fair for the ratepayer who's already there because they're absentee landlords making money out of our capital.
So we need to.
Yeah, the Rating Valuation Act, Section 20, talks about value of trees and minerals, and sub 1 is the value of any trees is not to be included in any valuation under this act unless the trees are fruit, nut, vines, berry fruit, bushes, or live hedges. The value of any fruit trees, nut trees, all the stuff I read above, is not to be taken into account in assessing the land value of any rating unit under this act. So forestry is not
Captured by a rate.
So forestry is not included, but horticultural
Production orchards.
trees, apples, berries, all that is included in the capital value.
Stephen's comment around lobbying late at night.
Yes.
So the only way you could capture a pine implementation is to apply a differential.
Exactly, yeah,
Do you? We don't. We do.
we don't.
So that would be the same for carbon, because a tree gets left behind.
I think it would be different, and I don't.
But then everyone's planted trees for production. No one's planted trees just for forestry.
But that could be
No,
what,
but that's what they say.
that's what they'll say.
Yeah, that's what they do say.
But how do we lobby government so we want to capture that?
No, we
Because
just say, we say we want to put a differential on forestry.
differential on trees.
We'll
So
talk about
mining, what did it say about mining? The same thing.
Well, it's because it's value of trees and minerals. And subsection 3 is the value of any minerals is not to be included in any valuation under this act unless the owner of, ratepayer for, if different, the rating unit is receiving a benefit from the sale or use or working or extraction of those minerals. So the way I read that is we take mine up the road, they now own the land, they are working their land for the mine, then it would be taken into account.
Evaluation.
Yeah,
So who does the valuation on a gold mine?
QV.
So old Tim McCaw goes up there, the shovel and the pick, and decides there's that much ground there, that much that they're going to mine. And he says there's a percentage of that mine, that now land is worth $300 million a hectare.
Having said that, there are the rules around, and Tim alluded to that yesterday, the rules around in how they interpret that. And they really haven't for what we do.
Because really that's my whole being on the rate thing is how do we make sure this is right?
Well, I think that our first stop, because we don't actually have an active, live, productive mine
Yet.
Well, we do Miller's Flat.
Miller's Flat.
What we would look at doing is looking at funding needs analysis for that sector. What does it contribute? What does it do towards causing us to incur costs? Then we can look at other matters. And if QV don't pick up necessarily the increase in value through their rules, that's the time that you might look at it and say, well, we've done our funding needs analysis. We believe that mining needs a differential. And that's when you put your differential in. Not necessarily trying to make, if the valuations don't pick it up, the change in value, then we can do that through a differential.
Well, we can have a meeting with QV because he wants to have a meeting with anyone, McCaw, and talk about these things and if they do affect us, because there's 8 or 9 mines that are going to be in the next 10 years. Time we get the 3-year terminal change of government, the mining could be in or out.
We can't do anything to the valuation because the law won't let them.
Yeah, so
But they
what we can do is we can take account of the outcomes that the community's getting for this. We can take account of exacerbated pays and benefit. Those are the things that are in section 1013 of the Local Government Act. So they're not so much about the valuation, but about how we feel about it. And it's that complex mix of those 5 categories.
are we allowed to be futuristic on
And
rates?
that's where Wairau went.
Yeah,
Forestry. Right. They were getting negative effects for the community. They were putting AFCAR at risk, their main employer,
Yeah.
and all of that. So they were able to do that. Raise Mind pay a higher rate because of the costs that council has incurred maintaining a road for them.
So we can't collect rate that we don't ask for. We've got to set our rate, but we can't collect any more of a rate, so we can't be subsidised. Rates can't subsidise other areas.
Yes, I can.
So if that be the case, how do we do what Wairau do? 'Cause that's the way I want to be, pretty much. If we see things, because to me, with heavy grade industry, whether it be solar, whether it be Onslow Dam, or whether it be Clyde Dam gets rebuilt or the Falls Dam gets built or big industry, where the people who are opposition, who came here to live for the quaint little romantic life in Bannockburn, there will be an adverse effect to their understanding what Central Otago is now compared to what it was when they came here. And if we can get subsidisation, because if you take a solar farm in the Minnetonka, well, it pretty much split them up, but that's fine, that happens. But yet it's owned by an American subsidiary company that's probably going to sell it on, and then the intention is not to do anything with it, but to sell the development that the community looks to the 400 hectares of panels the rest of its life.
Well, that's the type of thing that you would look at and you would say there's an economic benefit, and you kind of you end up with a kind of a split personality going on here, because the economic benefits you want, because you want people to be employed, you want them to be spending money in your district, et cetera, but the environmental effects you don't want. So you're not going to potentially change someone's, if you turn around and said, solar, let's take the solar farm, it's going to have hundreds of hectares of panels, and that's going to be an eyesore, it's going to be, glare and all that carry on. So there's that side of it. It's probably not a great deal of benefit to the district, because they'll be selling the power into the grid and making their money. They might have a few people around doing their thing. So you end up with, there are adverse effects that you really want to charge extra for. You're not going to stop it, because you can't turn around and say, you shouldn't be able to turn around and say, it's a solar farm, we're going to charge a factor of times 20 because we want to stop it. That would be perverse under the Act. So, but if you turn around and said it might be, well, we think that they're at a factor of times 2, and all solar farms are at a factor of times 2 because of these reasons, that's where you introduce your differential.
Yeah.
What you're actually doing is you're not mitigating the issue that you've identified. You're actually spreading benefit across every other ratepayer by lowering their rates.
Yeah, and that's ultimately that those people who chose to live there didn't choose to live there for a production energy company. And to be fair, Clyde, for what it's worth, has actually enhanced the community, and the benefit of the lake has made it from all is today.
So you kind of have to go through a process of analysing all of those parts, the good and the bad, and then coming to a conclusion and saying, okay, given that, we want to do this.
Yeah, and I
analyse
that at 3 o'clock in the morning, like I have most other mornings when the solar farm's gone in, and I want a factor of 12.
The difference is, though, is that with a solar farm, you've got if you work under the capital value, you've got land and its improvements.
Is there anything?
But you can't charge for the panels on their land.
Is there anything in the law about solar farms?
You can
Some
still
of
an
the trees?
improvement.
Because at the moment it's classed as chattels, so it's not included as something value.
Like a utilities.
Oh, so
That's something
So
that
I
you
think
could.
that
And maybe that if you had one that's a utilities provider, that would pick up the likes of a solar farm without saying, because we can't say, they were pretty clear yesterday, QB, that the solar panels don't count as improvements in the current climate, but a commercial utility provider might be something that you could.
So just for future, I think we've got to be really open. And I've been, to be fair, this is the first time we've had a finance team that's really want to be interested in this game to talk about it. And I've talked for a long time as other finance officers we've had here, chief executives and planning staff, and got nowhere. But I just think for future proof in the next 20 or 30 years, we're going to have these things come down our channel like we've never had them before. We need to have that discussion. Now, I'm saying 12 because you took the forestry on the East Coast, it was a factor of 7 or something, wasn't it?
Yep.
And commercial business.
The factors are all different because of the whole database.
And I think it's not so much about, I don't think we are looking for a solution that says, well, because they're making heaps of money, we should be taking heaps of money from them for rates. But I think when you've got a commercial entity, like we make the shops on the main street pay more for running a commercial premises. So if you're running a commercial entity on a piece of land to generate large scale solar, it ties into that as opposed to, well, you're doing solar, so we want more money.
So one of the cool things about the Rating Act is it actually doesn't define a lot of these words. So we're allowed to set rates on the use of a property.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we can create the definition of what that use is. We've got the Wellington court case with Meridian for the turbines, and council said they're commercial. The court's agreed, so that's in our favour.
I
So
just-
if we deem it to be commercial or part of another group, and treating everyone equal in that space, would be much, useful to be in a group rather than one.
And my risk is that Tracy and I are probably more vulnerable to curtains than anyone, because the small rural towns on the outskirts of these big enterprises are running. And you saw that in our election, there were people standing against you because you didn't have opposition to a solar farm, which we couldn't have opposition. And my argument is, well, we need to look at this as a rating thing, which is fair on everyone, and come up with a differential. It might be by 2. But there's 20 more could be in the proposed, and if it's commercial and it plugs in and there's an area, whether it be a hectare or 2 hectares and above, same with gold mine. And it's when you come here, you are going to contribute to the community, but you're going to be partnered in your rates, which is the fairest mechanism to do it on.
Yeah.
Instead of going, we want you to pay the $2 million to this trust or whatever. If we have to do that, we're doing that as well. But that allows us to allow the elderly lady on Bridge Hill doesn't have to keep contributing for the growth in Cromwell and watch all the tankers and diesel tankers going back over the bridge going, oh God, Central's changed. I've got to pay more for my rates. I'm getting nothing more.
Is our commercial rate at the moment 2.5 times residential rate?
Because the cost of a lot of this development will actually be in our society.
Yeah.
Be the
Right, we'll move on.
We will answer your question when we get it.
So at that point, it's actually only on the tourism rate and the grants and promotions rates. It's not on your general rate at the moment, or
So-
when you're planning an environment.
Yeah, that one.
Economic development.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Because the way we do, it's been very hard, like in the cities, Wellington's 3.7 for the commercial, which is really quite high. Up is probably 2.8, and a rateable unit was 1. And so it was easily explained. It's harder for us to explain. Just tricky.
Yeah, so it's only on a very small scale that we actually do those differentials for residential, rural, the commercial and the utilities with dams. Yeah, definitely not a large.
That could be a change.
Could be.
Utilities, if we go to capital value, utilities have a value. See there that LV is 0 for those utilities. And so we've got the water, wastewater and stormwater. That is revenue to council. And overall, it's a million extra rates.
1%.
When we start putting fixed rates on, that number will go down. So, but that's where it is on this example. Waitaki has just joined Southern Water. Have been rating long time capital value for utilities.
I thought
Just our utilities.
QV said yesterday,
Dams that had a big valuation, I thought.
These are new builds.
Sorry,
Which are-
right, yeah,
These aren't the dams.
right, sorry,
So you
yeah,
haven't got the new CVs,
sorry,
you haven't got the new valuations on this.
and this year, yeah.
So this is a big bonus again, capital value is your base increases for these people that have no land value. Next slide. So this is where we get a little bit more interesting. This is the This is the $390,000 property, residential properties in the district. I don't remember what that counts, what's that count up to?
Budget's different.
Trying to do something else, okay. So what we've got here is the status quo is the black line. There's a wee tail on the black line associated with some high value properties in the tourism rate. By the little,
Yes, it'll be the general, yes, the land value ones will be out, so it'll be your planning
oh
environment.
yes, those ones.
Tourism.
Yeah. That's why you got a little tail on the end, but it gradually goes up. So that's the black line. Blue line is straight flat line. Everyone pays the same. LV, because they're all $390,000 properties. And then the green line is what happens when you go to capital value. Suddenly you've got a $390,000 property paying less than $1,000 and a 1.9 million paying something close to $60,000.
So it becomes a progressive tax.
It's a progressive tax.
Rather than regressive.
Yeah. And there's a broad assumption made by most councils that the more you have, the more you can pay.
Yeah, that Central Otago has had a massive increase within the last 5 to 10 years of property values. So
So this is the values of the last 3 years, not probably.
last 3 years.
Yeah, the principle's right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's right.
Same thing.
Yeah.
There has been arguably a benefit to those, a significant capital benefit. in Property owners.
House for that time.
If you've owned a house in that time, there's been a significant capital benefit.
But at the moment, like if you look at the land values, you could have, say, 2 pieces of land in Cromwell and one has a $300,000 relocatable home and one has a $3 million home and they would pay the same amount of rates.
Yeah, I mean,
General rate, yeah.
Generally,
Yeah.
under a land value.
that doesn't quite seem as equitable, does it?
Currently you charge, yes, 3 other variable rates on capital value and 1 on the land value.
Yeah, the biggest one is on the land value.
Yeah.
Being the general
And the
rate.
3 others.
The other stuff, to be fair, is probably a hangover from wards when if we were cleaning it all up, we would not have that.
And that is the
Clean it up.
idea of this exercise, is to clean it up, make it easier for people to understand and easier for council to implement.
Right. The differentials, just in answer to the question, is on tourism and grants. Commercial industrial pay 5.36 times. Residential is 1 times, rural is 0.77 times, and utilities is 0.69 times.
This is 0.6.
Only on tourism and grants.
Only on tourism and grants. There are
So
no- the
effectively not
differentials
much.
Don't.
What tourism and grants? Hey,
Sorry? How, tourism and grants?
this one.
Yeah, sorry, what's
Did you say 1 unit, so what, utilities?
utilities pay 0.69 on the rates for tourism and grants. So it's a small proportion and it's a small, the differentials don't mean a lot. If a commercial pay 5 times, there is a big commercial differential, I guess is what I'm saying, 5.36 times.
So therefore, if the commercial is, my mind, is that the commercial which we want, we're paying 5.6 times, the commercial the community may not want to pay twice, it's going to be 12. Far away.
Yes, tourism.
Next slide, please.
You take Silver token. Commercial there.
Right, this is a whole lot harder to work out because we didn't have a nice list of properties that are all the same. So we've done a range of properties. And you can see that the range in land value was quite a small range compared to the much bigger range in CV. And we've attempted to, so there's a $53 million addition of improvements, adding 21% to the valuation on average. But you've got these outliers as well. Interesting in this example, so we've had to use a sort of linear approach rather than the nice picture that the previous one had. But roughly it goes in straight lines depending on whether you're on CV in the blue, sorry, LV in the blue, CV in the green. So again, LV with the has got no fixed rates, and it comes back a lot on fixed rates. And next slide. So now we start playing with the UAGC. Just on the slide, the one on the right, first land value should say capital value, got CV underneath it. So there's a glitch in the processing. But what we've got here is at the LV, we've got a lighter blue, which is 100% LV, and then we've got a version with a 30% UAGC on it. And so what you see is a movement upwards by about dollars. There, and then we move to the other side of the screen to capital value, and you've got the 100% CV that we just looked at before, going up to the top there on the right hand side, and then you drop in a 30% UAGC, and you can see it drops quite a lot there, and then the dark blue following that down to the other end, that property on 390,000 is now paying an extra $1,000 towards it. So that possibly is a better line to be on rather than the 100% versions of it. There's some way in equity, depending on how you define equity.
What was it yesterday? 870, 867 is the average property price, wasn't it, across Central Otago? Is that right? 867 or
Like
something?
that, yeah.
So 870 is basically a.
Yeah.
And that's actually the equilibrium. They're not going to pay any more first quote. CV. And 870, where that
Just
blue line
shy.
crosses the black.
Yeah, 850 to 870, yeah.
So that and
Yeah.
under that scenario, the average household wouldn't see a shift. Much of a shift.
So yeah, effectively anything below that, the benefits,
Decrease.
anything
Yeah.
above that, yeah, they're paying more.
Yeah.
The next slide. It's lifestyle blocks. Similar picture, just condensed.
Do we put a targeted rate on lot?
Let's come to that. The first.
Oh,
You want me to write this thing?
this next
You're glad
slide.
you came, aren't you? You're glad you came.
He wasn't going to.
Now,
Been waiting 20 years for this.
next slide, please. So this is River Hits the Road time. We've looked at land value and capital value and what those things around a little bit. In the handout, there's a theoretical arguments for land value and capital value.
What page, sorry?
page 5. There are arguments been going for decades over which is the better system to run, land value or capital value. We go way, way back. Originally, rating in New Zealand was capital value. Then it went to land value.
Why?
I don't know why for the start. But we're talking a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Captain Cook time. They started collecting taxes pretty quickly on arrival, I understand. It then largely went to capital, to land value, and more recently, the capital value is the preferred from the land value. And by most councils, there's about a dozen now still on land value. And you've got Waitaki that's on land value for its general rate, but it's got a really small general rate. It's because way back 20 years ago, a council didn't agree with it. It didn't matter what the number was, so long as the general rate was land value. That was what was necessary to get it over. So, the question is really where are we at for going forward? Direction. Hearing capital value.
Go to lifestyle, we went to lifestyle blocks. Can we have a differential in two different systems?
And two different systems.
Well, I mean, lifestyle blocks add no value. They're high value.
Well-being,
Excuse me? It's a bit rough.
morale.
I mean, I guess productive land, you look at productive land, they take big areas of land up in a region.
That's actually, that's actually the district plan, and it's actually wrong, and it's been paused, but the reasoning is
Roll it out.
That's a planning.
that's a plan function that needs
It's not a-
changed, if we're allowed to change it.
That's totally different.
They've got a minimum
Could there
requirement.
be a differential, I guess I'm saying.
Question is land value or capital value, not how we go, not what happens underneath that.
Is there an enthusiasm, do you think, to explore what capital value
So
rights for us?
I think it is
Yeah.
predictive.
So in my previous, I talked about the challenges that the community are going to give you with.
Pretty aware where the
going
challenges
out,
are going to come from.
Talking about capital value rating, you'll hear lots of things that aren't true because people get out there on social media, sending messages.
Everything's true on social media, isn't it?
COVID.
I've experienced a tractor coming up the front steps. Your front steps aren't big enough to bother. Yeah.
Tractors.
As long as it's not my husband's tractor, I'm kidding.
So yeah.
The capital value it is.
You're gonna want to have resource.
We want a more equitable system, and capital value seems to look like it might be that.
Okay. When we go
Sorry,
to,
is that the view of all of the council?
It's the loudest view. That's how it works, isn't it?
Because I would really appreciate everybody saying yay or nay, so that because there are people who are saying,
Sure.
No, but
Is
the
there
people-
anybody who doesn't wish to pursue what capital value might look like for a rating review? Is there anybody who's thinking, actually, we just want to leave it how it is, we think it's working well?
that's the question I would like.
It's not, is it?
when it comes to statement of proposal, the status quo will be one of the options. And the discussion that we go with that will depend on what choices we make. Yeah. Right. Moving on to differentials and targeted rates, which is
Not on the road.
Let's get over that then.
and for each of
Right,
these.
so that's sorted with solar?
So does everyone know what a differentiated rate is and what a targeted rate is? It's essential differences because it's there on that
Sorted the solar out.
page.
Sorted solar out while you're away.
Right.
I'm just kind of wondering whether for this particular thing, instead of trying to solve the
Exactly.
problems, just throw out like solar and, you know, and that gives us something that we can go and work through rather than trying to work out what the differential might be right now type of thing. Because I'm conscious that Stephen's got 35 minutes.
There's three that have been brought up today already.
Well, I've got some slides. So let's
Yeah.
go through the slides. Whether it's a general rate or a targeted rate, we don't have to make that decision now, but it could, you could have it as a general rate, or you could have it as a targeted rate. Why would you have it as a targeted rate? I don't think that you need to have those tourism rates and library rates sitting there, everyone paying separate. Because they're paying the same, they should be in the general rate. I'm a strong believer that a rates invoice isn't a way of communicating to people. That if we want, and the community expects that we have transparency in it. And I think that comes from using your comm skills and talking to the community at the right times, at the right places, and communicating what's happening with your rates that way, not through a rates invoice. Because my observation is that targeted rates can become problematic in terms they take away flexibility. And I know some councils that ended up with lots of separate targeted rates, and they end up with all these little buckets of money, and suddenly that activity has ceased operating and things like that. So
The only way I think a targeted rate would work, and this will probably get told off with these two, is that you look at something like bridging in rural communities where you might pay 10 cents an extra rate because it affects the rural part more than it affects general.
But you're already paying it in your general rate with the valuation being so high. What else do you get service wise apart from a road?
Well, if you had something like bridges, you had a program where we can't afford bridge.
But you say that you're
But like-
saying something different. You're talking about a community saying they want a specific thing, or are you talking about just a straight out?
Well, I'm saying that
Overall,
if we can't afford on our 4% cap to replace the Millers Flat Bridge at $60 million or the one out of Sticks, then that region where it is falling has a target rate, because most of the guys out of the Sticks will say, I'd rather pay another $200 a year.
But you're talking two different things here.
the example of your grants to your communities is a better example of what targeted rate could be used, rather than using it as a way of telling people doing.
I think the concept of having, what I hear in my community is that why are we paying this bit for this and this bit for that? And they would rather just, if they, you know, you've got the one bucket, the one general rate,
So
and
I
that's it.
Yeah, so
I don't want to know.
a lot of
what's paid.
criticism of differentials, and people don't understand that. So I think there's a story to tell. The story is to be told through our comms engagement with our community. It's part of our normal call with them, rather than using the rates invoice for that purpose. Next slide, please. So these have all got the same question. And as to why it should be different from the rest.
So what do you call that?
The dam.
So it is a utility, industrial.
It doesn't matter what you call it. It's does the dams. This is dams. The purpose of this slide is about the dams. Is there something different?
Oh, well, I think it's something different because that is something that our community carry the burden for that benefits all of New Zealand.
And it's general to the whole of the community.
I think so.
Okay, so we'll go away and do some work on options for that.
I felt that was out of touch while we had our deputy mayor sitting there, because while his employment was with Contact, he seemed to protect saying the dams pay a lot more anyway.
They do for a reason, but.
Yeah, and yes.
The other thing you've got to think about under the old, the valuers have changed the way they interpret and are valuing these things differently now. So that is why differentials for dams arose, because the values that they were carrying were ever decreasing over time. So you needed to decouple the money you received from a valuation basis. Given that they're now changing the way they do these things and the valuation seems to be more realistic, the question then also arises, should they be different from a rating perspective, or should they be treated exactly the same as everybody else? And that's one of the questions also, because you don't necessarily have that need to make up their contribution through a differential anyways.
Are you saying if something was tagged as, say, a utility, as a broad, you could say, well, actually, we rate those differently from how we rate residential and commercial units, and they have a factor that is based on X.
And the rationale for that factor is?
Would then capture things like hydro power generation alongside solar power generation without having to say it's got to be worth based on the capital value or the land value or whatever it be.
Don't look at this, and the impact the dam has, it backs up water, does a whole lot of things. How about if I put a generator in the flow of the river and created electricity? Is that considered the same? He's looking at future.
If it's,
how would we manage
if it's
that?
got infrastructure under, still counts.
Okay, yeah.
It's the infrastructure.
Yes.
It's a capital value.
So I can physically see that the impact the dam has quite visibly, but you stick something in the river, I don't see it.
If it's a machine, then it isn't part of rates.
No.
So there's parts of that building that we're looking at there that is rateable, parts of it that are land value, parts of it that are capital value, and then there's machinery.
How do we rate private irrigation schemes like old miners races and it's very low rating at the moment, but would that trigger, would that capture them?
It's part of all those
They're
races and everything. They're all easements over private property rights.
See, that has a category, UV category of dams, right?
Yeah.
So we would rate that as a dam. The question is, how you want to rate that?
Yeah, well, no, Tracy's right though. Most of a lot of it's a lot of irrigation races are easements, so it's
Well,
probably.
that comes back. There's a further question around that is, should we be dealing with a large dam, or could we be looking at something like Payrow, for argument's sake, that is small generation capacity, or smaller, you know? Is that just a dam? Is it just a generator? That type of thing.
Or do we have a rate for generation?
But that's where we might have a rate for utilities or.
Yeah, but the question
Then we'll
is,
separate the difference between a dam that is for power generation and a dam that is for water storage.
Let's just pop on to the next slide.
And also you've got a lot of, including people in this room that are generating power off their very small scale power generation.
It will be the same when you have people who have power on their
Yeah.
roofs. If you're saying that it's based on the having the solar panels, that's something that we probably don't want to capture. But if you're basing it on being utility
That one
provider,
down there, you do.
that then takes out all those people who are providing their own electricity for their own property and not on a commercial scale.
I guess the question is, you know, those types of things will be picked up through valuation changes through QV, and it will just be because it's highest and best use. So if they're generating electricity to supplement the home, even some of it going back in, but the primary purpose of the property is farming, it'll be valued as farm. If we go back to that, or even these ones here, what do you want to do with these values for these particular industries? So
How do we get a rate that's acceptable to, not say manage those? Let's not be careful when for or against, I don't care. But if we're going to have industrial rate or commercial rate that's 2.9 or something in the main street, that's a commercial rate.
Yep.
If I had a say in it, that commercial rate would be, if I was on the board, I would say you're being unrealistic here because you're using your powers, like we've had that discussion with the gold mine, that you're leveraging this to make it inefficient and you're costing the ratepayer. And then the James over here goes, oh yeah, but that's quite good because I'm not 100% sure I want this in my corner, but if I understand it's offsetting the rates of the ladies in Ranfurly, or people can come to our community and have those services, then I put up with it. So I think there's got to be friction and there's got to be tension in this one here. We really want that gold mine coming back. They're lovely chaps. I'm sure we'll sit down and have a cup of coffee at the Monica show. But the same with the American Investment Company on the left and the American Investment Company, because Long will come national in 3 more years' time and sell those assets that they've just controlled.
Yep.
So we need to have in that market, it's new, it's not what people came to Central Otago for. We're functioning quite well, very well. Everything's in balance. But this will change dynamics over time when all of a sudden there's 16 pitches on there. All I just want to be seen is when I finish here, that I create enough friction in there that the community's sort of got what it wanted. Whatever you call that.
It's helpful though that there is the case law from Meridian that's
Yes.
come before
Yeah.
us, that we can say, actually, that does have an impact, that is a commercial and it's backed up by case law. So if we're looking to target things like solar farms, or if there was a wind farm came, that we could say, well, actually, that is different and we're going to treat it differently, despite the fact that the cap.
You go, oh my God, Central Otago is a fantastic opportunity. We could turn the tap on, but equally we can have the tap half round and let this table and the community get understanding of where that tap wants it to be.
You don't have a solar and a wind farm differential for those 3 turbines at Horseshoe Bend, do you?
No.
So an example is they use that road with heavy cranes and stuff periodically, and they're probably one of the higher users of that road, but we don't capture that.
So those are things that we can capture.
I think we're going to look at this part.
So I think we've had a good discussion about this over the course of the time we've had here morning, and we've got enough. Go ahead looking at what our options are, and we can then get into this in more detail. The next one is our
Sorry, question,
yes.
and you might not know the answer. In Southland, there's a lot of wind farms going, and how are they approaching it? Do you know? Does anyone know?
Haven't talked to anyone in Southland.
No one's talking to Tim Story at Jeep or anyone in the community. They hate him. No, that.
Utilities. That sits comfortably with what we've talked about already. We talk about that anymore.
We capture it with the CV is what you're talking about.
We capture it with the CV. And bearing in mind that you're going to be a shareholder of those. We'll be rating. Yep.
We'll be rating the woody entity.
Right. This one is more complex.
Big baby dig.
Although, short-term accommodation. Had a lot of conversation about it previously.
One of the beauties of a tax system is simplicity. I mean, how complicated do you want to make it?
I've done a slide like this before where you get someone with the binoculars looking through windows or out on the street or further away. How much energy of staff do you
What
want
are you going to get back?
putting into this?
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Well,
And-
well,
and-
another
and
council
this-
started doing it and they've put a staff member on it, and so far they have gathered an additional $500,000.
One staff member. Rotorua.
You got to remember the difference in what we're looking for, like if we were over the hill. it would be
And it's a challenge, and there are people in our community who are renting out, their granny flat or their downstairs unit that are making tens of thousands of dollars.
But how do you,
$50,000 in addition.
Yeah.
That is putting extra pressure on our ratepayers who are living here. Should those people be paying more?
Yes.
So as an example, we had a large family, a house and 2 lots. We put it together. We then got sick of the kids making a mess downstairs, rented it out, so we paid more rates, and yet we had fewer people in the house. So actually, we use less water and less sewage. Probably a few. The circus
Good
came,
up as a deeper.
the circus came along, we moved
And it's
on.
also
So-
factoring into the likes of, Stu with his Wedderburn cottages, he pays a whole lot more. We've got a lot of people who are renting out, units to people coming in on Brown Trail that aren't staying in accommodation providers that are paying their way. Should those people who are providing effectively accommodation on a commercial basis via Airbnb or, renting out rooms for rail trailers or whatever it be,
Is it a district plan issue?
What I'm getting at, what's the difference between a house in Alex and someone decides to target the tourist market with short-term accommodation versus renting it long-term year-round to a residential, someone who's working in? What's the difference in the level and their consumption of services within the community? That's probably where I'm looking at it, like, how do you justify it?
I think in our resource consent, it's for a house. It's not for part of a house or.
So under plan change 19, you can have an additional unit on your property without resource consent.
So what you're saying is it doesn't matter who's in there,
Yeah,
the usage is the same.
yeah,
And the
essentially.
rate collect will be the same, it'll pick it up, and the capital, if it goes up, you, in
If it's a granny flat, we've already talked about it,
It's still-
potentially get caught with Capital Valley.
Typically used for accommodation, and if it's just in terms of actual demand, it's typically higher for short-term accommodation because you have people doing washing every time they're in, and the sort of the water, the wastewater, the showering is typically slightly higher.
Water will be used and pays anyway.
They'll have to be connected to council services then, wouldn't they?
Water will be used and paid, so you're gonna,
Vehicle trips with short-term accommodation versus permanent, but that's just.
Flats have to be active.
Just remember, 1 July 2027, they're not going to be council services anymore. So the new entity will deal with demands placed on the structure at that time.
we're just trying to capture the usage of the footpath.
Well, that comes back to
Yeah.
what actually are you funding? Are you?
That's
funding-
where I'm coming
Are
from.
you funding the tourism rate, which is currently a differential? If you're funding, because you can only collect rates to fund your activity, you can't collect it because you want to collect it. So
that'd be the way I'd want to have rates, eh?
what we're actually doing is shifting the rate burden from everybody to a specific group. And that's fine. So it lends itself more to a targeted rate than a differential.
How do you prove it? That's the problem you're gonna have.
Then you've got to go in and put all of the effort into collecting that information. And we have done a bit of work on that. And we think it's probably going to be 2 people potentially, because you've also then got the resource consent side of stuff where people have just done it and actually haven't got consent, and the building consent stuff where it's not up to standard for that. You might have to raise 600,000 for argument's sake to cover your $400,000 worth of tourism costs that you want to cover. So there's that part of it as well.
Hypothetically, if you move to a capital rate, wouldn't that take care of that tourism side anyway? It would spread it out further as it was.
Yeah, and it would pick up the granny
pick it
flat
up.
stuff as long as you
Yeah.
know about it. And it comes back to what we talked about earlier on. If they've done it and they haven't done it the right way, we won't necessarily know about it.
Yeah.
Although if you've got water and sewer attached, you've got to get a consent for it.
And there'll be methodologies or technology, and all of a sudden 15 Knowles Crescent is now using 4 times the amount of water. It'll be picked up in the water rate. Well, there's an anomaly here. You might be able to go, well, actually. But we can read a water meter off of.
We won't be reading the water.
No, but they can, like a roundabout way. What I'm saying is the technology, all of a sudden, if 15 Knowles Crescent's using 5 times the amount of water, it's actually not just a household anymore.
I think, I actually think post 1 July it's going to become a lot more difficult because the information will be the CCAs elected for a particular purpose that they may not be allowed to give us back under the privacy rules. So, yeah.
Capital Valley will pick that up. Because at the end of the day, like an announced,
If you've got a residential house that you are Airbnb-ing, on a short term, that won't pick it up. You'll just be paying your rates based on a $600,000 house, and it might turn over 3 times a week or once a week or whatever it is.
It is a bugbear of my wife, I'll tell you that for a fact.
It's a real bugbear for our commercial operators
Yeah.
who have to meet a whole heap of stringent
Yeah.
requirements, everything from smoke alarms to testing the plug on the toaster. But an Airbnb,
Yeah, well, we went down the road and they're quite busy because they go and book a batch and then they're flat stick and they pay for another one. None.
So the other thing is, because rates is, as I've said before many times, is a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. If someone, it's all done at 1 July. So if someone decides, I've got a way around this, I'm going to stop Airbnb at the end of April and I'm going to restart it at the end of July or August, at 1 July, they're not Airbnb. So technically,
do anything about those people.
no.
Some people are just,
Yeah, well, the Queenstown district plan approach to it can, because it requires you to, under the district plan, to,
we've got a few different, and that's probably one of my worries with the short-term accommodation stuff, is we are so stretched on accommodation, especially in Cromwell. The more people who say, actually, I've got a spare house, but I'm going to Airbnb it for 4 times the price of having tenants in it, you then end up with the same sort of challenges that you have in Queenstown and Wanaka, where it's all for people coming in and there's nowhere for people to live who are doing the work. So that is one thing that short-term accommodation does target, that makes it not as favourable to just keep turning it over. And we need places for people to live in all of our towns.
So that goes on to my next point that I tried to bring up before. Can we rate by plan change or new developments? Because if you take Clyde and Bannockburn, I may be wrong, but 38% of the houses are absentee landlords. And they're only playing in the market for capital gain. Now, there's no capital gain tax in New Zealand, but actually we are the capital gain tax. So if we got a new development that's coming in, and I was with a developer from 5 Mile the other day on a boat sitting outside Michael Fay's Island. He's put 400 sections in Queenstown. He's got another 600 to go, and the number of people applying for them is 2 to 3 to 1. And they're only coming here to flick the market off. And some will move away and some will just take the capital gain. So can we, from now on, go I know you can't rate by date, any new developments that plug in, can we go at 1.1? So the developer goes, oh, we've got to pay 1.1 rates. They charge it on to the buyer and their ratepayer, and Mrs. Jones and Bridge Hill gets a subsidy.
Then you're also capturing the mum and dad investors that are, bought a big section and that's their help.
Now, what I'm saying, to me, where's the tipping point where we've got enough supply or not? Because we're growing an exponential
But
growth.
Pam has just pointed out what the issues with that is. You've got the exact same thing. No matter what you do, you've still got the same problem, whether you add money or not. The problem is that it's up to the individual owner what they choose to do with it. And if they,
What I'm saying, development's going beyond, say, start in 18 months' time. How do we, our role is to manipulate the market one way or the other, correct? Whether we put affordable housing in there, we free up land, or whether we put in a district plan 5 houses in there, have we got the ability to charge more people in the future a higher percentage of the rate that the person been here for 20 years does?
Well, I think what we've got, we'll take that as a thing that we can work through, and it's either going to be, yes, it would work and we can do it, or no, we can't. So I think that we can keep that on board. What we're hearing, are you saying that you are interested in this or not?
Would people be keen to just see what it looks like?
Okay, we can do that. Yep, we can do that.
Can I ask another sort of a question the other way around? I mean, I know for a fact in Cromwell there's an awful lot of empty properties and not properties that are occupied at all. Is there a possibility that we could perhaps look at a discount from the rates if those properties were rented out on a long-term basis? Is that possible?
so the tool to do that would be your remissions policy.
Yeah.
Something I've seen before, but
But that's my debate in reverse. You know, there's people buying it for speculative nature. They don't want someone damaging it and then they put it on the market 5 years' time and we've captured none of it.
So what we're really talking about is how do we deal with almost absentee landlords or absentee owners who have the potential to, just don't want to rent it out or do it.
Which would fix
Is there a differential that we can apply to those people
Yeah.
to encourage the
So-
use of those?
So Wellington City Council put one in the CBD for land that wasn't developed in the CBD.
I think Upper Hutt was also looking for buildings in the commercial area that were vacant for a long period of time, putting a differential to penalise them, keeping it vacant when they should be using them up and making them.
There are a couple of pieces of vacant land that could really do with being developed. That's something we want to look at.
Well, and everything.
Okay,
Absolutely.
we'll come back with some ideas around how.
Because that was one thing, now we've lost the water, that was one thing you could charge them if they didn't use your uniform 1 unit of water. That means that they're an absentee, they weren't using it. And that's why I've always been wanting to push rates up, because the absentee landlord will pay a higher rate, not use facilities, but the rest of our community will get every facility it needs.
Yep.
That's my cross subsidisation.
No, we got that.
The next slide is our current rates and do we need them? So already talked about that. If it exists only for the purpose of telling people what we do, we need it. Do we need a community facilities, library and planning rate? Oh, great. Tourism one is on for the top 3, 4 are fixed.
Top two are fixed.
Top 2 are fixed.
The middle two, or the next two are capital value. And then the tourism and the promotions ones are based on differentials. And so your promotions ones are actually your community board based as well. So.
Yeah, that's the one that's called grants.
Particular
That's
reason
one called
why
grants. And the
community facilities and libraries are separated into two different ones. Libraries, community facilities.
District Library is a historic one. And community facilities came about when we districtised and we bundled everything into a fixed charge. We did have a discussion at the time whether we would have a fixed and variable portion of it, and we were going to deal with that at this time. Community facility was basically to reflect what was being charged at a ward level. So that's why that came about. We just needed a solution at the time to deal with all of those assets that we would fund. So.
I don't think there's any problem, and if it makes it easier in joining some of those together, people just like to see in brackets what it covers. So when you say community facilities, libraries, pools, parks and reserves or something like that.
But say general rate includes.
Covers that.
Well,
Because
Yeah.
from an administrative point of view, not that has a bearing, but it is by breaking it down like this, it creates just business overheads, the way we.
In terms of those types of things, it comes back to what Stephen was talking about. We would use the comms and engagement space to say, this is what you pay for. And it would be different for every person because their value of their property is different. So, a farming entity would pay more towards community facilities, for argument's sake, than a residential place because it's just the nature of the values. But we'd look at some way of individualizing the messaging. I don't know how that would be. It could be done online. You click on a thing and up comes your chart that says you pay 10% towards this and 2%. That type of thing is what we're talking about. And it does away with the need for these types of things.
I mean, the issue with bundling it up, making it variable charges, is never with the community facilities, especially the rural community, if it was moved away from a fixed charge, and thinking farms and orchards and so on would pay more of that community facility charge. And the ironic thing about it is they're the ones furthest away from those facilities.
We're still collecting.
Right, so you could still collect it
At
as
the
a,
30%,
you could still collect it as a fixed charge.
30% includes those now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just.
So you wouldn't just bundle it into the general rate.
It stays.
The general rate would pay for it,
Yeah.
but the general rate is charged in two components, a
Yeah,
fixed
gotcha.
charge and a variable charge.
Yeah.
So
So for argument's sake, community facilities could stay as a fixed charge. And
The only thing that changes is a line on the invoice.
yeah. So instead of community, because our UAGC is like $107. If we bundle all those into the general rate, our UAGC might be $1,100. So it would be the same effect
Yes. Yeah.
as separating them all out, lumping them into the general rate.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, so the method of collection doesn't change. it's
Just,
the
yeah,
reporting.
just
of it.
how we show it on there.
You're feeling okay with that? Slide.
So all those would stay, like the other ones would stay at CV, they just wouldn't be a line item on the invoice, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting some direction, that direction's element to it. We need to start thinking about engagement. Building on that, do you, anything to ask at this point?
We just work through the process.
Yeah.
At this point, we're talking about, picking in with stakeholders. Depending on what the model design will have impact. Social services, just identifying who those groups are that we need to contact and talk to and just get familiar with.
And Paula is on our team
Yes.
for this. I completely forgot about that at the beginning. But we do have a comms expert need to help us through with it. So
It's Stu though. Yeah.
we're thinking about it all 2 hours and think, when are we going to get that in?
Make a video.
Yeah, so we didn't intend to do anything more than to remind you that engagement is important in the process. There, and the last slide, successful outcomes. I think we have achieved
I
that.
think we have, yeah.
We've achieved that.
If we get it wrong, you'll have to get a new photo next election. We'll be shot. Oh, Curtis won't. They love him down there.
Yeah. And the last slide is
New to know.
AI
New to know. Yeah.
pictures of.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's
Well,
Without with no wind farms.
Tell,
and stuff,
Jamie, that's a bloody, and it's
And three minutes on the computer and tell them to create a picture with some old machinery in the front with the mountains in the background, and that's what you get.
You couldn't stand.
Yeah.
Walding Pond's all the way down the
Carbon
gully.
credits.
You would have started or finished on that tractor as a kid.
He's trying to be smart, the little bugger. Put him back on the rope. Put him back on the bloody lead, I'd say.
For the next chat session.
Yeah. Yeah, I think successful meeting. Sorry about rushing around.
Oh, you're right.
Good, thank you for putting up with Sue.
Paul looks relieved. He has had the meeting.
I'm loving this. I think all this stuff is really good.
It's your jam, isn't it?
I love
You're
it.
Excited by it.
I'm pleased to say. Couldn't wait to get to council today. Couldn't wait.
When Stu said he wasn't coming yesterday, I was very disappointed actually.
Thanks.
All right, so
No, where's Charlie when he's time for a wee and a coffee?
we're gone, aren't we?
No, it's just, got to work upstairs for an hour. No, it's just.
Smashed it.
No, got
Left some of the flesh on there.
We can make that.
Just leave it.
No, I think it's after us. Staff's drafted.
That'll be sort of break your peace. General rates.
Yeah.
And then we're done at 12:40.
That's land value change.
Yes, so the capital. Those are the ones that are going to get smoked this year.
Alrighty, guys, the last session of the workshop is the Te Korawai, which is going through kind of what the next steps and things are. But they are running slightly behind, so we do have a longer break. We're going to break now until 11:30, and I just wondered if it might be worth, I know we had a really truncated time yesterday for our pre-agenda catch-ups. So if any of you need to have your GMs or ask any questions of staff in the meantime, take the opportunity. Don't think we've got any snacks, do we, Wayne? But there is a vending machine down the hall if you need it.